Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Drop. Greg Wyshynski, Arda, Ocal. Lots to cover on this week's edition. Certainly have to start with the Philadelphia Flyers and Ivan Provorov. By now, many of us know the story. Ivan Provorov refused to wear the Pride Night inspired warm-up jerseys. Also, the tape with the rainbow, or the stick with the rainbow tape, pardon me. So he sat out warm-ups. He did play the game. The Philadelphia Flyers and the NHL both released statements about this. Ivan Provorov said that this goes against his Russian Orthodox religious beliefs. And this has caused quite the debate on many fronts as it pertains to not only hockey, but sports in general. This has certainly permeated far beyond the hockey bubble. So, Greg, you covered this for ESPN. You saw a lot of the reaction to this online and from people in the hockey community and the sports community. What did you gather what were the most common responses to this?
Well, I guess it should be said that first, my inbox is been declared a toxic waste site by the U.S. government right now with all the feedback that I've gotten on covering the story. Look, there's a lot of fans that are very frustrated, that feel disappointed in Provorov, that feel disappointed in the Flyers, in the NHL. I mean, there's a lot of fans that also feel that he's well within his rights to cite his religious beliefs to cover up what a lot of people feel is homophobia, and that he has the choice to make this decision for himself based on those beliefs. Two points I wanted to make here, Arda, on this story, having covered it now for a couple of days. Pride Night is largely symbolic. Okay, we all know that. I had one gay rights advocate tell me last night that it's almost performative in some ways, that it doesn't really get to the root of the problems, which is the homophobia we have behind closed doors and in the hearts of people in hockey. But the Flyers Pride Night was also functional, okay? The jersey that Provorov decided not to wear, the stick he decided not to use, those were auctioned off for charity for the other players after the game, raising money for Flyers Charities, which is a part of the organization that tries to grow hockey in diverse communities. And so, like, his decision to boycott warmups is his choice, but it ultimately impacted part of the team's charitable efforts, and in fact may have violated the standard player contract too, if you look at the part about supporting charities. But that's neither here nor there. I'd like to see Ivan Provorov make good on this. He can do what he wants. He can make the statement that he wants. He can boycott warmups, but you got to make good with the charity that you stiffed in doing so. So I'd love to see him make a public donation to Flyers Charities to make good on the money he cost them, even if it's a minimal thing. Second point is, I really would have liked to have seen from the Flyers, from John Tortorella, from the NHL, a stronger rebuke of homophobia in their statements. Their statements were fine, Arda. They were supportive. They were compassionate. They reached out to the community and let them know they were thinking of them, but they didn't take that stand that I think a lot of people wanted to see here. And this is a league that has fined players for gay slurs in the past. These are teams that will kick fans out of games for using homophobic language. This was the moment to double down on those feelings. And it's one thing to stand with the community, but it's another thing to fight for the community. And I think that was really what was lacking here in those messages they put out after Provorov's decision.
You mentioned that you had spoken to many members of the LGBTQ community. What were some of the things that they told you as it pertains to their reaction to this?
Well, disappointment, frustration, a lot of cynicism about the NHL, about Pride Nights, about you can play, about all, not you can play, but hockey is for everyone, things like that. I mentioned you can play because I spoke to them specifically. They're an organization that's worked with the NHL since 2013 on a lot of these efforts. And their COO told me something very interesting that really resonated, which is that, it's the Provorov thing overshadowed everything the Flyers tried to do that night. And in many ways overshadowed the fact that the Flyers are one of the leading organizations in the NHL when it comes to being progressive in the LGBTQ plus community. They have charities that serve those communities. They had Gritty at the Philadelphia Pride Parade. Scott Lawton and James Van Riemsdyk have created a program this season that gives away free tickets to that community for 20 home games. No one's talking about that, and in the wake of Pride Night, because of what Ivan Provorov did. And I think it just underscores what a lot of fans in that community feel like when it comes to the NHL and in these kind of progressive social initiatives, which is that, for every step they take forward, they stumble back 2 steps. And I feel like there's always a sense when these things happen of absolute exhaustion from that community.
When these kind of stories come up, obviously it's case by case. It depends on the situation, the player, and also the team. How do you think the reaction would have been if this were on, say, another team in the NHL? What would that have looked like, in your opinion?
I mean, I think different teams might have approached this differently. You think about some of the more progressive teams and their hiring in their front offices, like Seattle or Vancouver, and how they might have reacted to something like this. I think specifically about the Pittsburgh Penguins and Brian Burke being at the top of that organization and wondering how he would have reacted, being such a strong advocate for the community, to see a player boycott Pride Night like this. But part of my problem here with this whole thing, Arda, is I'm trying to wrap my brain around the idea that a player could skip out on warm-ups to protest and still be allowed to play in the game. It's not like Pride Night ended when they dropped the puck. Okay. It was still going on the entire game. And I kind of feel like neither Ivan Provorov nor the Philadelphia Flyers had the courage of their convictions here in either side of what could have happened to him. Personally, Arda, I don't think he should have played in the game. I think he should have been a scratch for that game. And that would have respected his feelings. And I think it would have also been a message from the team that they understand the ramifications of his feelings, even if they do have the shroud of religion to cover them.
So as I mentioned earlier, Wish is following this story. So definitely follow him on social media for any follow-up or continuation to what might come with the story involving Ivan Provorov and the Philadelphia Flyers and his refusal to wear the jersey and the rainbow-colored stick for warm-ups in that game. Let's move right along here on the drop. We love to do a segment called Buy or Sell, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to start with Connor McDavid. I, Wish, have been banging this drum all season. Now, I'm 1 for 2, I'll be honest, okay? I'm 1 for 2 here. I thought he was going to go 50 goals in 50 games. That seems out of reach, probably out of reach by now. I'm wrong there. Fine. I can admit when I'm wrong. 150 points, though. We haven't seen it since 1996, Mario Lemieux. I'm still holding firm. I am buying, Wish, that Connor McDavid is going to break that plane, cross that threshold, and we will all celebrate it mightily when he does. What say you?
Sell. Look, there have been 7 guys in NHL history that had a higher points per game average than McDavid's current 1.83 points per game. 5 of those guys were named Wayne Gretzky, and he did it in the 1980s. So just to show you how impossible it will be for him to keep up this pace. I love Connor. I think he's only going to get better now that Evander Kane's back on this team. But boy, 150 points is a lot to ask. I think he falls just short.
Come on, man. It just sounds like you're like, wow, that's such a giant number. It seems so insurmountable. Like, come on.
It is. It's insurmountable. Wayne Gretzky is like the guy who did it. And he's like, it's not like McDavid's going to be able to repeat this. It's not the 1980s. Goalies actually wear pads now. Like
they actually go into butterfly now.
It's going to be really hard to do it.
They wear pads. They go into butterfly stance. I get it. Yeah. Fine.
They know how to play.
I'm not saying 10 times. I'm saying once. I'm saying once, dude. Once this season. Once. Even if he does it once, anyway.
Hey, listen, I'm a Connor super fan. I picked the Oilers to win the cup. I love nothing more than to see him do it, but I am skeptical that we will see that kind of history made.
You picked the Oilers to win the cup. For those that selected the Florida Panthers to win the cup, the first thing they need to worry about is making the playoffs. Buy or sell, the Florida Panthers will be in the postseason.
I'm selling, man. They have around a 43% chance of making the playoffs as we tape the show. They're going to have the top three in the Atlantic. Pour cement on them, baby. It is going to be the Bruins, the Leafs, and the Lightning. The Leafs and the Lightning have already booked their hotel accommodations for the playoffs. They know where they're going in the first round. In order for the Panthers to make the playoffs, they're going to have to finish ahead of two of the Islanders, Penguins, and Capitals. In theory, maybe the Rangers fall back a little bit. Devils and Carolina probably good for the top two in that division. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see them finishing ahead of two of those teams in order to sneak into the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. So I'm gonna sell on them being a playoff team, unfortunately.
I can't believe you didn't take the Leafs joke there. They've already booked their tickets to the golf courses after the first round. So I can't believe you didn't go there. Thank you, Wish. That's a very stand-up move of you. What a gentleman. I can already feel Dmitry Filipovich's eyes rolling at me right now. I'm going to use plus minus as a stat here.
No.
But usually, I know, how dare I? Here's the thing. Most teams that make the postseason have a positive plus minus, more goals than allowed, right? More goals for than goals allowed. Right now, the Panthers are a -6. There's only one team right now in postseason position, the Kings, that have a negative plus minus as a team. The Sabres, who are 2 points behind with 3 games in hand, are a +13. And my bold prediction is the Sabres will make the playoffs. That's another conversation. But for this purpose, the Florida Panthers, I'm with you. I am selling that. Okay, buy or sell. Flames fans should boo Johnny Gaudreau when he returns to Calgary, to Cowtown on Monday night. Buying or selling?
Okay, so I'm a players guy. I believe in the free market. I'm all for guys securing that bag like Johnny Gaudreau did in Columbus. However, my man waited until 0 hour to tell this team that he was leaving. And I feel like that kind of thing, yeah, you don't know what your heart wants, whatever. That kind of thing does deserve a little bit of boo bird, a little bit of jeering, a little bit of all that stuff that's going to come visit him from Flames fans. The way he handled it, I wasn't a fan of, even if I'm okay with him going on to greener American pastures.
I'd like to propose something here on the show, Wish. I believe for situations like this, we should create a Wish and Arda boo allowance meter, like a general statistic, like a meter. And we take a bunch of criteria. How many seasons did that player play on the team? How was the breakup between the team and the player? How successful was the player on that team individually and the team while he was on it? And then we have a final score. We weight them. We get a final score. We give it a glossy name. And that is how much the fans are allowed to boo. There's like an extreme, right? There's the Ray Bork, and then there's the John Tavares. And all the players fall somewhere in between.
I think what you're saying is that like a 1 on this scale would be a standing ovation during a Jumbotron video tribute. And a 10 would be what I saw on John Tavares night at Nassau Coliseum. Cars running over his jersey, him being burned in effigy outside the building. That'd be a 10, I think, on this scale, right?
And they throw snakes on the ice. Like, yes, there's exactly. So where would, okay, fine. Just right off, just ad lib this. Where would Johnny Gaudreau fall on the scale?
I think it's a 7.5.
Wow. A 7.5?
Yeah,
that's harsh.
Dude, I think stringing your team along like that is a tough look, and giving him a little bit of hope that maybe he stays. If he stays, maybe Kachuk stays. Like, who knows? I didn't like the way it was handled. I didn't like that it came down to the wire like that. And it's one of the reasons why Bad for a Living had to like scramble to keep the ship from sinking and do the things that he did. But no, No, and listen, I think he was a beloved player in Calgary. I put it at 7.5 though, as far as the anger and aggression from Flames fans. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a Calgary guy. I've never been in the Stampede. I don't know what these people think. Maybe they like him. Maybe I'm taking the outsider view, but I would put it at a 7.5.
I can't wait to hear the reaction. By the way, Brad Treliving is riding high as opposed to Johnny Gaudreau right now in terms of team positioning. So I guess he kind of won so far. Well, the Flames are doing great. And
my bold prediction was that they missed the play. My bold prediction was that they missed the playoffs, Arda. I know you picked the Sabres to make the playoffs. I said the Flames are going to miss. I think they're going to miss. Kings, Kraken, Oilers, Knights from the Pacific. Flames on the outside looking in.
A team that probably won't make the playoffs are the Vancouver Canucks, and they have a lot about them that is being spoken on. And one of those topics is the head coach, Bruce Boudreau, on the hot seat. All the comments that have come out recently. Right now, I'm the coach. I'm going to keep coming to work until they tell me not to. And one name that is being rumored, bandied about in terms of a replacement is Rick Tocchet. Buying or selling Rick Tocchet as the next coach of the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, our friend Rick Tocchet on TNT this week said he has not signed any contract. It's not exactly the I ain't going there that I think probably Bruce Boudreau wanted to hear. Look, I think that Rick Tocchet is a guy that gets his players to hustle. He famously was the Phil Kessel whisperer in Pittsburgh as an assistant coach, which is where he got to know Jim Rutherford. I think he's a player's guy. I also think that he is another in a grand tradition of people whose success and reputation may have been inflated by low expectations with the Arizona Coyotes. Those teams weren't very good. He made them respectable. A lot of it was better than average goaltending. They couldn't score. They had some of the worst shooting percentages in the league during his time there. They were punchless offensively. I'm not sure he's the answer in Vancouver. I understand why he's going there. And hey, I have had GMs in the past, Arda, tell me that guys that are on their third team, as this will be his third team after Tampa and Arizona, it's when they really figure it out. So if he goes there, best of luck to him. I got nothing but love for the Canucks. I want him to see be a good team. I'm just a little bit cynical about the inflation of accomplishment when it comes to making a bad team mediocre.
Speaking of the Vancouver Canucks, we are debuting a new segment here on The Drop. Now, Wish and I, dear viewer, we love to fix things. You give us a challenge, we love to solve it. We're big escape room guys for that reason.
I am. I love them.
I love them too.
Anything involving a zombie and math, give me.
So tee this up for us, Wish. What are the fans about to enjoy here?
All right, so we decided in order to try to figure out what to do with the Vancouver Canucks, we were going to reach out to some experts. So we gave some of the smartest hockey minds in Vancouver 45 seconds each to fix the Canucks, and here's how they do it.
You guys want me to solve the Canucks' problems in 45 seconds? Are you crazy? The simple answer would be to build a time machine and go back to the bubble when the Canucks were one of the sexy teams in the NHL coming out of that postseason. Of course, going back to the bubble would put us at the height of the pandemic, and I'm not sure anybody really wants that. But from that point forward, I would absolutely have done just about everything this organization has done differently, and maybe then you'd be looking at a contender. But if we're going to deal in reality, I suppose with the trade deadline looming, I would have a fire sale. Horvat, gone. Shen, gone. Kuzmenko, yeah, he's gone too. And if you could get out from under one of Besser or Garland, or hey, maybe both, I'd take a loss on those deals to create cap space. We know that cap space is king in this economy, and from that point forward, use that cap flexibility, and hopefully you could start to get things right.
How to fix these guys? Well, it has to start with a reality check, an honest reality check, not one of those hopeful reality checks. Here's three things about the Vancouver Canucks. Number one, obviously, not a very good team right now. It's going to need a miracle to make the playoffs. Number two, they're capped out. They're going to lose players because they can't afford to keep players like Bo Horvat. They can't even afford to bring back the current team that they have right now that's not good enough to make the playoffs. And number three, their prospect pool isn't all that great. They've traded away first-round draft picks, multiple first-round draft picks. So until there's a recognition of how far this team has to go to not only make the playoffs, but become a Stanley Cup contender, I feel like they're just going to keep making the same hopeful mistakes over and over again. They need a reality check, and that's where it starts.
Number one, have a fire sale at the trade deadline. Unload Bo Horvat, unload Luke Schenn, unload Andrei Kuzmenko, who's going to be 27 years old soon and has a pending UFA. You should capitalize and sell high on him. Number two, slow play Thatcher Demko's return. Make sure that he ramps up slowly. Don't give him a chance to steal too many games, and embrace the tank for this season. Number three, between now and the offseason, do whatever you can to move JT Miller's contract, even if it means taking back another team's inefficient contract, so long as it doesn't last another 7 years. Number four, embrace the tank for the next two or 3 years. There should be no untouchables on the roster outside of maybe Pettersson and Hughes. Use most of that cap space and acquire sweeteners for taking on short-term bad contracts for other teams that last year or two. And just use the draft, use your future assets to build and build from the draft, acquire elite talent, and really build the core up from that way.
Wyatt Arndt here, and how do you fix the tire fire that is the Vancouver Canucks? The question we've been asking ourselves for the last 8 to 9 years. It feels like Gym 1 came here and failed, and then Gym 2 now is struggling. I'm worried there's going to be a Gym 3, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to tell you, let's keep it simple. Center depth, defensive depth. Defensively, the Canucks have Quinn Hughes, some bloated contracts, and some spare parts. There's nothing there. Forward-wise, center-wise, they've got Pettersson and Horvat, which is pretty good, don't get me wrong, but then it goes to JT Miller, who is a center and is defensively responsible. He's a better winger, he really is. So that means if he's a winger, you're spending so much on the wings. Miller, winger. Mikheyev, winger. Besser, winger. Kuzmenko, winger. It's too much money in the wings. You got to invest in center and defensive depth. You do. So anyone who's a pending UFA this year, you're gone. Luke Schenn, I love you. You're gone. Kuzmenko, I love watching you play hockey. You're gone. If you can get anything for Besser or Garland, you're gone. You need to clear space from the wings, put it back towards the middle and the back end. And I will say, get some draft picks once in a while. It's not going to kill you. It really isn't. Draft picks are pretty good to have. And the last thing I'll say is I want you guys to update your scouting reports. I feel like you guys have like a copy of 2014 McKean's scouting report somewhere. Like, oh yeah, it wasn't the guy you thought he was going to be. Tyler Myers wasn't the guy you thought he was going to be. Like, players change, injuries happen. You got to update those scouting reports, boys. You got to go for the guys that you can hit on. If you're going to spend $7 to $8 million on a defenseman, you got to make sure it's the right guy. Otherwise, you're stuck with what they have now, which are a couple of anchors on the back end. No one can win with that.
Some great thoughts there from esteemed members of the hockey community in the city of Vancouver. Let's just point out as well that it's impressive that they all kept it to 45 seconds because I'm sure they needed a lot more time.
They absolutely did not. They tried their best. A few of them had. Hey, listen, going into this gimmick, Arda, I'm like, if we can get it under 3 minutes, then we've done pretty well. And I think the longest one might have been under 90 seconds. So kudos to all of our boys, Jeff, Jason, Harmon, and Wyatt for doing the gig for us, because it was great.
By the way, whenever you give a member of the media a time limit, does it ever get followed? Ever?
No.
Ever?
I assume some of the people watching the drop have seen the drop before. So no, when you give people a time limit, there is absolutely no way that anyone is ever sticking to it.
Present company included. You're right. The search for merch. This is where teams around the league or hockey adjacent companies send us stuff so that we can show it, promote it, enjoy it, celebrate it, and then most of the time, give it back to you. I had a lovely time in Columbus the last couple days. I was invited by the Blue Jackets. This is just one of the lovely things that they gave me. This is just a hoodie. It's really cool. Very comfortable. I will say this, shout out to them. They have created this entirely new experience at Nationwide Arena, essentially a fan zone. It's basically an esports lounge meets Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. So you can go and play video games, a bunch of stations. They created a replica of their actual Blue Jackets locker room where the players obviously change and interact to hang out. They created a replica where there's gaming stations, and then there's shooting stations, just like the Hall of Fame, where you can do hardest shot and shoot against the goalie and shoot on targets. You can play in net. It's a really cool area. I'm really interested to see how this is received by the Blue Jackets fans. I think it's going to be very popular, especially because it's going to be open during games. And also, they have ideas to blow this out and make it like a destination for birthday parties and corporate events, etc. So we'll see how it goes, but it's launching on Saturday. So thanks to the Blue Jackets for the invite. What do you got for us?
I got nothing for you. I just wanted to know, did they at all try to load you into the cannon like Gonzo and fire you at any point?
No, but
that's when you said you were going to Columbus, I assumed that was the premise.
They let us fire the cannon. So
Nasher
and I, yeah. So shout out to Nasher, who many people probably watching this know who he is. Great hockey content creator. Yeah, and actually, I'm sure he'll come on at some point too. He became the first. This is crazy. The cannon's been there since 2008. He became the first non-Blue Jackets employee to fire the cannon, and we did that the other day. And I got to do it too. So I'm the second. Lucky me.
Wow.
But like Nasher, who was there for the game number 1 for the Blue Jackets, lifelong fan, he got to fire he's the first one. So like, and it's very loud, Wish. I know that like you've been there, you've heard it, but like when you ignite it, you're like, whoa, I was not expecting this. So
that's amazing, man. Congratulations on being the second guy on the moon.
Ever. Exactly. Like who remembers the second guy on the moon? Nasher's the Neil Arp. Thanks a lot, man. Now you just ruined my whole vibe. Thanks a lot, dude. Wow. If you're not first, you're last. Thanks. That's very nice of you.
That's right.
Great.
That's right.
Now, I guess we'll do puck headlines now that I'm in a crabby mood. Thanks, Wish. Puck headlines. Dateline, South Beach, reverse retro. Okay, so the jerseys for the All-Star game, obviously we're in the glow of reverse retro. We've done a lot of reverse retro content here on The Drop. But guess what? The All-Star will also have a reverse retro theme. So catch us up, Wish. What is the reverse retro motif at the All-Star game?
All right, we can't show you the jerseys yet. As we do the show, they are still going to be yet to debut on our airwaves this evening. So we can't show you the jerseys, but I can tell you, think 1980s Miami Vice vibes, a little bit of South Beach vibe. That's the kind of thing you should keep in mind with these jerseys. And also, the reverse retro of it all is really interesting. I spoke with Adidas this week for a story that'll drop when the jerseys do. And there was a lot of discussion about which era of the All-Star game they should honor, they should harken back to. And I can tell you that the quality of the star player and how much those star players meant to the current generation was one of the determining factors in which era to revisit. So I've seen them, dude. I think they're dope. I think people are going to love them. And I think they certainly fit the vibe of the location that we're holding the All-Star game.
I love to hear that. Also, as it pertains to this show, we may or may not have an announcement coming very soon as it pertains to the All-Star game.
Ooh.
Stay tuned about that. What could it be? What could it be? Greg Wyshynski, Dateline Buffalo. The Athletic ranked Rasmus Dahlin. You may have heard of him. The NHL's best player under 23 years old. Okay. If there was a Team North America, Rasmus Dahlin would be the star of that team. What say you, my friend?
No. Look, I got my jersey t-shirt on, man. Jack Hughes. All due respect to Rasmus Dahlin, who's had a breakout season. You know who's had the breakout of breakout seasons? Jack Hughes, who has managed to, knock on wood, stay healthy, who has established himself as an elite star in this league, has carried the Devils, having MVP-type campaigns for them. I think Dahlin's probably number 2 on my list, but I think Jack Hughes is a clear number 1 under 23 player in this league.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? I mean, some people just watching highlights, if they don't watch full games, might even put Trevor Zegras above Rasmus Dahlin. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm saying some people might be like, oh yeah, I know his highlights. He's awesome. Look at him on shootouts and look at the Zegras goal and all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, okay, I'll put him there. But
I love Trevor, but you need
no, I wouldn't. I would say Dahlin.
You need to D it up. You need to D it up like this much, maybe to maybe have it and be in that conversation. Jack Hughes, again, like for those who haven't seen him or think he's one-dimensional, watch that dude play. He's like Mark Stone out there. He's picking pockets. He's fantastic.
He really is. Yeah, he's creating opportunities and capitalizing on them. Absolutely. So, yeah, I agree with you. Jack Hughes is the guy if we're going to talk under 23. Finally, Dateline. Holy moly. That is your line. You put that in the rundown. I'm just going to give credit to you for that line.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharks and Devils, the first period ended 4 minutes early. Both teams went back to the locker rooms, still with 4 minutes on the clock, because there was a malfunction. One of the, a part of the dasher got caved in. There was a hole in the boards, so they had to stop play. Players went back. What they did was they took a full intermission. Then they came back when the dasher was fixed, and they played the remaining 4 minutes of the first period. And by the way, 2 goals were scored, which was even funnier. And then they took a 2-minute break, and then they started the second period. And what happened was, I think there was a scuffle along the boards, and one of the players, I think the Sharks player, kicked the dasher and created the hole. Right. Yeah. So I will say this, Wish, the shape of the hole looked like the mustache of an old-timey cartoon villain, in my opinion.
I saw somebody on Twitter compare it to the mouse holes that Jerry the Mouse on Tom and Jerry used to run in and out of on the cartoon. So I appreciated that. A little harkening back to my youth.
I think that was Brett Pack.
Yeah,
he loves his devil stuff.
Very accurate.
Just give a shout out to him.
Dude, it was a reminder. I wanted to reference it in Puck Headlines, Arda, because it was a reminder that I have watched a lot of hockey. You have watched a lot of hockey. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you've watched a lot of hockey. Every single week, there is something that happens in these dumb games that we've never seen before. It is without fail that at some point, you're watching the game and you are not thinking, what if there's a mouse-like hole in the bottom of the boards? Will they stop the period? And now we know. And that's the beauty of hockey. There are so many variables and so much weirdness that every week is an adventure, and every game gives us new things we've never seen before.
And every week, this show is an adventure. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end this week. Enjoy Tampa Bay and Edmonton on ESPN on Thursday. As you mentioned, the All-Star jerseys will be revealed on this broadcast.
That's correct. Along with the rest of the All-Star players. By the time you see the show, you might already know who they are. It's a fun time, man. A time for debate. It's that fun period before the All-Star game where we start debating players, debating the look of the jerseys, and start hearing little inklings of what they might be doing for the skills competition to get people tantalized to tune in and watch the NHL All-Star Weekend only on ESPN.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I know that we weren't allowed to vote for these people, but I said, just throw Justin Bieber and Connor Bedard into the All-Star game. Just make it happen somehow. Invite them to the skills competition. That's not happening, but I think it'd be funny. And also on Monday, Johnny Gaudreau returns to Calgary, 7.5 on the boost scale. So actually, let's revisit this next week, Wish. Let's just see if it really was a 7.5. Right? Like, let's see. Let's organize. Yeah, let's order.
Yeah, we might have to recalibrate the odometer, as it were, if it's wrong. But I feel like there's going to be a few boos. I don't know. Real quick, who do you think they hate more, Tkachuk or Gaudreau?
Gaudreau, probably.
Gaudreau, right?
Yeah, Tkachuk is a lovable. Like he's an outspoken, lovable guy. He was a character,
and he also gave him notice. That's my point. Like Tkachuk gave them notice. He's like, I am not going to resign here. Act accordingly. Oh, here's a shiny new, slightly used Jonathan Huberdeau for your troubles. Like Gaudreau just pieced out. Like it was a totally different deal. I feel like that's the difference.
Can we interest you in a Jonathan Huberdeau? Here he is.
We'll throw in a little Mackenzie Weegar that you can borrow for a little bit.
Mackenzie. Thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate you all. Follow us on social media, and we'll see you next week.